Sonic Up and welcome to another episode of Wrestling Wednesday on the weekend. It's the weekend, you know what time it is. Funk It Pod, all things wrestling. And as always, we start with AEW, then go to WWE, of course. Because we only talk about SmackDown, not Raw, because Raw got fired a few weeks, almost several months ago here from the podcast. Let's see if we ever adding Raw back into the mix. So far, I don't see much reason why we should have to. So, Dynamite, Rampage, SmackDown. Let's go. And again, I'm not necessarily reviewing the matches. I'm just trying to look at, does the story make sense? Because you can have a bad match, and sometimes matches are not as highlight worthy as you would like them to be, but they still make sense from a storytelling point of view. So let's see the stories behind the matches this week. We start with AEW Dynamite, and as always by now, AEW kicks off the show with a big match, of course. This time around, the Jungle Express, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, hey JR, with Bryan Danielson and Christian Cage versus the Super Elite Mega Click Elite. So Adam Cole, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. And speaking of storytelling, you don't need much storytelling when you have the Young Bucks, obviously, but that still was storytelling involved. They all hate each other by now. Jungle Boy and Adam Cole on collision courses, of course, for a while now. They had their one-on-one last week, and so they also clashed here a few times, and of course Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson are facing off, and of course the tag team Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy with then clashing with the Young Bucks. That was fun. I think the fast pace that just fit the teams involved. Luchasaurus was shining like crazy with like crazy flexibility, moonsaults and whatnot. So that was also pretty impressive there. Then the ending I think was quite good in terms of storytelling because they caught Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Now I can't stop anymore. They caught Jungle Boy. And then they, in the very end, they delivered like a 4-way BTE trigger to Jungle Boy, and then for the cover while they dispatched or disposed of all the other team members before, of course. So I think that was pretty well done, also well executed. A few botches in there, like on Wednesday in general, there were a few botches in there, but I mean, we're not Botchamania here, so no big problem with me. They covered it up okay-ish, I think. Story-wise, it makes sense. It's also good that the good guys don't always get one over, but I mean, with the Super Elite, it's usually them getting one over on the good guys anyways. So, yeah, that was fun. And also, storytelling-wise, of course, Nakazawa got involved, Cutler got involved. Like, of course, they were cheating again to win. So sticking with the theme, which makes sense, and I'm all for it. So that's definitely good. And this, of course, also drives the narrative forward that we will see more of those interactions. Usually when the good guys win, eventually then they're moving on. But in this case, of course, the bad guys keep winning right now. So eventually we will see more. Makes sense. Yeah, we want the good guys to win, of course, eventually. Makes sense. All for it. Good job, everybody involved. Fun match, and storytelling-wise, it made sense. Storytelling-wise, then the next match, Sammy Guevara versus Bobby Fish. And Bobby Fish comes in as the newest member to the AEW roster, and it's like, hey, I'm going to take your new championship. Okay, they set it up like a social media, kind of like Bobby Fish going after Sammy Guevara. Sammy's like, yeah, sure, come get it. Okay, yeah, the match was also fine, I believe. I like those counters. I like Bobby Fish being like smart, showing like his IQ. Sammy Guevara, like resilient countering moves and so on. The Spanish Fly by the Spanish God in between, of course, also looked pretty cool. Then also Fish missing with the roundhouse kick. That should have been the lights out, of course. That was then also just a smart move by Guevara, how he countered. So I like that it was not a one-sided beating, but I mean, it's Bobby Fish, so you know he's not going to catch or get a beating. They both showcased their skills. Bobby Fish looked really legit, and Sammy Guevara was just able to pull it off in the end, like luckily, of course. Yeah, so it made Bobby Fish look strong and made Guevara look resilient. So Guevara's still the champ, good. Bobby Fish looking strong, and then can face Bryan Danielson next, for example, right? So good match. Not a huge story involved, but it makes both both wrestlers look good. So all for it. Good job here. Then we had like weird one, Darby Allin versus Nick Karamoto. Komoroto. That big hairy dude. Don't hurt me, Nick. That came out of nowhere. No story behind. Decent, okay match, but doesn't do anything. Doesn't further much. I mean, yeah, it's like QT Marshall and so on, but yeah, it's a bit lazy, so I'm not a big fan of this, to be honest. Then we had Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb, and eventually Serena Deeb would snap in the match, right, and would just go full heel and punish Hikaru Shida and take the victory. A bit surprising for most. We thought Hikaru Shida gonna get her 50th win, but the way they put it, build it, will she get her 50th win? Actually, that makes sense that they deny it to her. So it's going to be like this big achievement that she gets her 50th win. Serena Deeb, lots of heelish work, but to be honest, it looked a bit lame in between. I'm sorry, and yet they couldn't kick my ass, but they could out wrestle me because I'm not a wrestler, obviously. So I'm obviously still impressed with what wrestlers can do, but it just didn't look that great. A bit sloppy at times. See, now I'm feeling bad, and I'm hesitating during the podcast saying this, but now I'm almost crying. No, that's an allergy. But still, so I understand the heel turn or the going full heel and the storytelling there, that's fine, but just the sloppiness in between took a little bit away of the intensity, because some of the moves just did not look intense, unfortunately. Nevertheless, the overall story made sense. The outcome was surprising somewhat, so I'm all for it. So good job there. Yes. Then, of course, the highlight, the casino ladder match, not Battle Royale, even though they said it a few times in commentary. The casino ladder match, and of course the Joker had to be Hangman Adam Page, and he comes out, the crowd chants Cowboy shit. What they do with Adam Page, storytelling-wise, makes sense for the past 2 years. It's awesome. And I know they make fun of it in the rocks and being the lead, long-term storytelling. But it is, you a-holes, it is long-term storytelling. And we are here for it. We like it. Adam Page doing a great job. He's a fantastic babyface. He made the crowd boo Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley never gets booed. The crowd booed Jon Moxley when he was about to win the ladder match because they wanted Adam Page to win it. And I mean, the spots in between were insane, of course. Matt Hardy in between with a spot from the ladder somewhat, and with the Hardy signs, kind of throwback. Even though he's a heel right now, but everyone's like, yeah. And it's cool because he knows people remember, he knows people want to see that, so he just gives the audience what they want, and in that moment he still keeps doing his Hardy family office heel stuff, of course, but that was just nice, in the moment. So good on Matt Hardy for this. And when Moxley going right after Lance Archer made sense also storytelling-wise, because they have so much background, of course, and they were fighting the past few weeks, so that made sense. Pac and Orange Cassidy going at it also made sense based on the history. So all the little stories involved in this match made sense. I liked that. And of course the overall outcome is the returning Hangman winning that thing and setting him up for a match with Kenny Omega is fantastic. Now the question is, will they pull the trigger 2 years after? Will they do it? 2 years in the making. Just imagine that pop if that's gonna happen. At Full Gear, obviously. It's gonna happen, and oh my god. Yes, so great job AEW. Dynamite was fun, stories on point mostly, except Darby Allin. But yeah, that was cool. I enjoyed this a lot. I also did enjoy Rampage, even though I had something to say about the initial match between CM Punk and Daniel Garcia. Because, the setup is Garcia and his boys, they jumped CM Punk in Chicago. And so now Punk, weeks later, he remembers, hey, Daniel Garcia jumped me. Daniel Garcia, if you want it, come get it. Okay, a bit lame the setup, but okay. There is still some history there, so okay, got it. So now Garcia and his guys, the two guys on the outside, work well together, going after Punk's legs and so on. That could also be the excuse why then the top rope moves from CM Punk looked a bit lamish, old, dangerousy. He's not the biggest airborne or like the biggest high flyer, of course, but when he goes up top, it does look a little bit inconsistent still. But of course, Garcia and the guys went after his knee, so maybe he's just really good at selling it. Of course, CM Punk wins, and this time with the Anaconda Vice, which is good, so it's not always just a go to sleep. Shows that he has different maneuvers to win, just like Daniel Bryan uses different maneuvers to win, which is appreciated. Laying this to rest now, Garcia done, let's move on to the next one. Match was fine, story behind it, but at least it gave us enough reason to understand why they are fighting, so still okay. We then had the Lucha Bros versus the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed are the number one tag team on the list in the rankings apparently, and that's why they fight. So fair enough. Who am I to say there's no story behind it? If they are number one, you have to fight them. Made sense. Max Caster coming in with some diss tracks, obviously mentioning Ben Simmons because they were in Philly. So good job there. The match, of course, was fun because A, the Lucha Bros are awesome. B, the Acclaimed have a lame hand sign signals, but are still a good tag team. That pink outfit is just a bit annoying, but I mean, they want to be annoying, so it's all good. Lucha Bros winning relatively easy, but of course there was a back and forth, and Max Castro looked strong in between. Bones looked strong too, of course. I mean, they both looked good until the finisher, until the Lucha Bros caught them. It was fun. But now we can move on. So now Lucha Bros need like a bigger feud again, I believe, to move on. Also storytelling wise, the Acclaimed, just I don't know what exactly they're gonna do. They're gonna keep beating everybody just to cement the number one spot. Hard to say. Then we had Sky Blue, who's of course very cute and we all love her, versus Jade Cargill, who just killed her obviously. And then Thunder Rosa comes out and tries to take down Jade Cargill. That makes sense. Thunder Rosa is still upset, of course, obviously from the beatdown last time. Now going after Jade Cargill. So eventually they're getting a real feud for Jade Cargill, which makes sense. The match itself was, of course, a squash match, basically. So can't really judge the match for much. But so the story with Thunder Rosa makes sense, so let's keep it going there. Then we had Ricky Starks versus Brian Cage for the FTW title. So the FTW title is now an officially recognized title in AEW because they introduced him as the champ and so on. And that was fun for what it was. Of course, we knew that Ricky Starks wouldn't be alone, that Hook, who's just annoying, and Powerhouse Hobbs would be there, of course. The thing that bothered me a little bit in the end was that Ricky Starks hits a spear on Brian Cage, which just looks like nothing, because, I mean, Brian Cage is 7 times the size of Ricky Starks, so maybe don't go for a spear as your finishing maneuver there, or one of the finishing maneuvers. Anyways, of course, Hook got involved and then Powerhouse Hobbs got involved, so that eventually then Ricky Starks hit Cage with the belt and then was eventually able to pin him. So it makes sense, and it's okay that the Machine loses to 3 people. I just wonder where we go from here, because now the Machine can't be like, okay, I lost, let's move on. No, Brian Cage is going to be like, I'm going to have to get this back. So we're going to keep going with this, I believe, this Team Taz versus Brian Cage, which, to be honest, I'm a little bit over it by now. But the match was fine. The story made sense still, but slowly we should move to different story arcs here, I believe. So hopefully next time they have an encounter, something else happens that takes those two sides apart into different directions, hopefully. But overall, I was quite happy watching this. What I wasn't quite happy with, to be honest, and now you're like, yeah, you always say that, was just SmackDown wasn't that great. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a good wrestling match on there actually, which is kind of nice. See how I'm trying to be positive here right now. So there was a wrestling match in there, which was kind of nice. So we had the King of the Ring quarterfinals. And of course, the King of the Ring concludes in Saudi Arabia, because where else would it conclude? The quarterfinals, Sami Zayn versus Rey Mysterio. Of course, Rey Mysterio then collided with Dominic again, while Dominic tried to help, trying to, cause Sami Zayn untie the turnbuckle, the cover, so Dominic tried to put it back on, and Rey says, "Go, leave me alone, I can do it alone," and then Sami rolls him up. Yeah, so that story has been drawn out for a while now. Let's just break him up. Okay, let's do it now. It's a bit, that slow burn is too slow, because it's just the same thing every week by now. So we know what you're doing there, WWE, but it's doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So it's enough now. Let's do it. But they might just, I don't know, now Rey's out of the tournament, so I don't know what they're waiting for. Next pay-per-view to break them off. Let's see. Then we had Finn Balor versus Cesaro, two wrestlers at work. Finn Balor won against Cesaro, which made me sad again. No, I like Finn Balor, of course. Finn Balor. But man, Cesaro, remember 6 months ago, we're like, hey, he's finally gonna break through. Now they're just not dropping him out, but, nah. That's just sad. Cesaro to AW, let's go. We then also had the storytelling-wise, there's no story in the tournament, so can't really judge much. They just paid to face each other. In this case, let's move on. Queen's Crown tournament also starts, like King of the Ring for the ladies. We had Selena Vega versus Toni Storm. Toni Storm is awesome. I don't know why they don't feature her more. Selena Vega won, because they're apparently high now on Selena Vega. It was a really short match. No story there, of course. Again, okay, tournament, you don't need stories, but there's also nothing behind Selena Vega that makes me root or something. I don't know. Man, she was really good on the mic, but right now every week she's turning more into a cliche wrestler, which is kind of sad. A cliche sports entertainer, which is kind of sad. Then we had the second quarterfinal match between Carmella and Liv Morgan, match number 7,000. Of course, Carmella won. She had a protective mask that shielded her against the kick of Liv Morgan, and then she was able to super kick Liv Morgan herself and take the victory. This has to continue. This was super boring, annoying. I did not enjoy it at all. And this story, of course, will continue forever. So far, there was just nothing great in there. What else happened there? Of course, contract signing for the ladies. Of course, it has to break, all hell has to break loose. Bianca is still terrible at promos. She's gotten beaten down over and over again. She still comes out skipping, playing with her hair. I really don't like Bianca Belair by now as a character. In ring, she's awesome, of course, but that character. Roman Reigns, then the only good thing storytelling-wise with Paul Heyman, and he forces Paul. He's like, Paul, your family, we love you, but tell Brock Lesnar what's going to happen in Saudi Arabia. You tell him in the camera, and Paul Heyman, all acting is kind of, I don't want to upset Brock Lesnar, but Roman Reigns forces him to tell Brock Lesnar via the camera that Roman Reigns will be and still reigning, defending, whatever. And this is not a prediction. It's a spoiler. So, yes, that was good. Thank you, Tribal Chief and Paul Heyman, for adding some kind of storytelling, narrative arcs to this episode of SmackDown, which was, other than that, terrible. Topped by Happy Corbin and what's his name? Madcap Moss. Oh my god. Yes, thank you, Kevin Owens, for coming out and just putting a beating on them, of course. But of course, Kevin Owens is alone. Anyways, this Happy Corbin Madcap Moss is just terrible. It's terrible. Naomi then confronted Sonya Deville. He says, hey, trade me to Raw. And then Sonya Deville says, no, I'm not done with you yet. You have a match next week against me. We all saw that coming miles away, but maybe after that match we can move on, because this is also just annoying. Second good part at the end, of course, and again, thank you to a veteran. Thank you, Edge. Because then Rollins, of course, in the ring calls on Edge. Edge comes out steaming, looking bigger than ever again, after 2 or 3 weeks off. He's coming out. Seth, chair in hands, but he puts the chair down to go into the ring, and then before he can grab the chair again, Edge spears him, and then of course the brawl ensues, and eventually Seth is able to wiggle out before Edge sinks in the submission. But yeah, that was nice, a good way to end, because everything else besides the Paul Heyman promo with Roman Reigns sucked on this week's episode of SmackDown. I mean, the match for what it was, Finn Balor versus Cesaro, yes, thank you, but everything else, God, terrible. It felt like Raw. Whew. Yeah, so that's my storytelling review for this week. Let me know what you think. Do I overreact to that? But it really wasn't good, was it? Is it? And it was the new seasonal kickoff or whatever, according to Michael Cole. Not even Pat McAfee sounded as excited as usual. So let me know what you think. That's it for this week. Let's hope more positive vibes next week. I'm trying to be all positive vibes again next week. Also for SmackDown portion of the show, of course. Until then, don't forget to always kick out at 2. Follow this podcast at FunkinPod on social media, funkinpod@gmail.com for emails if you have anything to say. Like, share, subscribe, because it really helps if you're leaving reviews and so on. That's awesome. Thank you for this. Kick out at 2, and I'll see you next week. Take care, stay safe. Sawadee ka.